There is a legend that tells of a man who was stuck on his roof in a flood. He was praying to God for help. Soon a man in a rowboat came by, and the fellow shouted to the man on the roof, "Jump in, I can save you!" The stranded man shouted back, "No, it's okay, I'm praying to God, and He's going to save me." So the rowboat went on. Then a motorboat came by. The fellow in the motorboat shouted, "Jump in, I can save you!" To this the stranded man said, "No thanks, I'm praying to God, and He's going to save me. I have faith." So the motorboat went on. Then a helicopter came by and said, "Grab this rope." The man again replied, "No thanks, I'm praying to God and He's going to save me. I have faith." So the helicopter reluctantly flew away. Soon the water rose above the rooftop and the man drowned. In heaven he said to God, "I had faith in you, but you didn't save me. You let me drown. I don't understand why." God said, "I sent you a rowboat and a motorboat and a helicopter. What more did you expect?"
My name is John Featherstone. I manage a senior housing facility for Central California Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. This began several years ago. I had worked in the public sector. I was material manager for a hospital, a public hospital, a big one of the top 10. And I wanted to do some things that were more related to the mission of my church. I believe that faith groups exist to make a difference for good in the world. And of course, we can all make a difference for good wherever we work, whatever we're doing. But I wanted a more direct, hands-on opportunity to serve. When this opportunity came up, I had some money in the bank, and I was willing to take a lot less in income in order to just be there and do what was available for me to do in service. But over a period of time, things wear out. Trucks wear out, cars wear out, they continue to roll up the miles, and as they do, they get less reliable. And reserves, cash reserves, get used up as well. That's describes my situation exactly. And a year ago, in 2017, January, February-ish, I started making some decisions, and I started looking for a car. I had given the truck away because the cost of repairs on the truck was greater than the value of the truck to me, and I had somebody here locally that I knew had the skill sets and the need to have it, so I gave it to him. And the car continued to roll up the miles, but it was getting to the point where it would overheat when I would make drives to go to meetings and things like that. So I said, "Lord, I need to come up with a solution on this vehicle," and I started looking. And we have a camp meeting event where it's a big convocation of my faith group that comes together, and we listen to a lot of good talks, inspirational talks, and some training talks, lifestyle, health, mental health, spiritual topics, things that are relevant to daily living. I had planned to go to that in July, and of course that meant that I had to get down there in my car, which cost me an extra day getting there because I had some car problems right about the time that I needed to go down to that. I oftentimes, every year actually, I make a pledge of a certain amount of money that I ask to be taken out of my check each month, each check, for mission projects, for special projects to do good. And this year I said, Lord, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm going to have to take care of some of my personal needs because I've used up my nest egg. And I came to the end of the 10-day period of time, and I just was impressed. I had been thinking about the needs of mission, the needs of the community and the condition the world is in today. I mean, we live in a very hostile environment where people are no longer united in causes for good. And I said, I can't hold back this year. I'm going to have to find another way to resolve this vehicle problem. That's what I did. I made the pledge, and I also stipulated a timetable for it to kick in, to activate. And I got back home and I looked at my direct deposit statement there that came in the mail in the end of July, and I said, oops, looks like they made a mistake and they already activated. I said, oh well, no big deal. I said, we'll figure out a way to get along anyway. Well, I got to the end of October, and in October I got a call from a friend of mine that's been a friend since we were 9 or 10 years old. He's retired. He's aerospace engineer. He's done a lot of great things. He's very accomplished, very smart, and just a highly ethical guy. And he calls me up and he says, hey, you haven't been up to see me for a while. And so he says, I want to come down and see you. Is it okay? And I said, sure, come on down. I says, I need a break. I need some time off. I says, we'll drive around, we'll eat good food, and we'll solve all the world's problems. He got here, knocked on my door on a Monday morning, and asked if he'd had breakfast. He already had, and at the hotel, and so we decided to walk around and take a tour of the campus and see what I had done since he'd been down 3 or 4 years earlier. So we went back to the house, and it was time to get something to eat, and I says, where do you want to eat, or are you hungry yet? Maybe you want to wait till the middle of the afternoon. He says, before we do that, he says, there's something I really want to talk to you about that's real serious. I was a little trepidatious about that because I thought maybe he had some bad news or something like that. We share with each other the bad news in our lives as well as the good news. He's that kind of friend. I said, sure, go ahead, shoot, tell me. He says, well, my wife and I have just been really impressed with what you're doing here. We just think it's really cool. And we want to do something that'll put a smile on your face when you have a couple of hours to get away from things here. I says, what are you thinking of? And he says, well, we want to give you a car. We know your car's getting old, and we know you've sacrificed to do what you're doing. And I says, oh, what are you thinking about here? Because I'm still treating this as very kind of a lighthearted sort of banter back and forth. And he says, well, we want to give you this car, and he points behind him, and the car that's behind him is a Mercedes 350 SLK red roadster with beautiful burgundy red, I think it's called Bengal red interior, leather interior. And he said, you don't have to keep it if you don't like it. He says, if something else is more in harmony with your needs, you can sell it outright, you can trade it in. He says, matter of fact, if you don't even want the thing to hit your name in terms of transfer of title, he says, I'll take it down to a dealer if you've got something you really want, and I'll just sign it over to the dealer as a down payment for whatever you want. And I said, wow, this is really, this is extravagant. And he says, no, he says, we want to do this, we really do. And I said, I've got to think about that, I really do. Because I was going to say no immediately. Because, who does that? Who does that? And so he says, well, think about it overnight, but I need to know tomorrow morning because I need to get a plane ticket to fly back home, and you have to drive me to Sacramento to to meet the plane then at the end of the week. That night I went back and I prayed about it. And I said, Lord, I said, this is not the way I wanted you to answer my prayer. I said, this is extravagant. It's something that people who are looking at me as a steward of your resources are going to say, this is a guy who doesn't manage his own resources well, much less, God's resources. Because the community that I am renovating and managing is owned by a faith group organization. I really thought about it, and I remembered that story, that legend, as it were, of Hurricane Katrina. You know the story, probably. You're familiar with it. The man that's stranded on the rooftop, and he prays to God for deliverance, and that's the story I thought of. And it's a silly story, of course. But I hadn't told God that he couldn't give me something extravagant. I hadn't told God that what he gave me had to be eminently practical. All I said was, you can't source it from this place here or this place here. I had named the two places that I couldn't, due to conflict of interest, receive a gift. I said, Lord, I've got to say yes, otherwise I'm telling you that you don't know best, and I'm telling you that you don't have good judgment in your answered prayers. And so the next morning I told my friend, yes, I'll take it. I'm enormously grateful for this, and no, we're not going to trade it in because I don't want to get caught up in a payment. So the licensing and title transfer was $219. He had purchased a 3-year, 50,000-mile warranty with a low deductible of $100 per claim. That was transferable into my name for $50. He had gone down and paid for Mercedes Embrace service for a year. That's the roadside assistance, like OnStar. He had paid for a year of Sirius satellite radio service. And so I have learned some things about answered prayer. First of all, there are so many times when we pray for things and we ask for the bare minimum. We look at God as if he's very tight-fisted and that he only want to give you enough to survive until tomorrow morning. Well, I'm in a position now where I have to share this story very freely because it is an extravagant car. It's flashy, it's red, it's a sports car. And if I don't share the story, somebody's liable to think that I'm misusing the resources that God has given to me. So I have to share that it was free to me, it was a gift. But the other piece of this is that when you think about this in the concept of salvation and redemption and God's grace is the most extravagant thing that he could ever give to us. Even when we were his enemies, he sent his son to redeem us. Who does that? Who does that? And that's what I say about this car. What friend out of 55 years of friendship comes and gives you something out of the blue? What kind of friend does that? And so I've learned some things about answered prayer. I've had a lot of them over a lifetime, but this is probably the most extravagant one that I have seen. And I'm looking for more.
When you pray, be earnest, be resolute. Present the promise of God, and then believe without a doubt. Do not wait to feel special emotions before you think the Lord answers. Trust in His word, and leave the whole matter in the hands of the Lord. with full faith that your prayer will be honored and the answer will come at the very time and in the very way your Heavenly Father sees is for your good. And then live out your prayers. Walk humbly and keep moving forward.